In this video, I will go through all the steps you need to follow to go from not owning anything on the share market to either owning shares in individual companies or ETFs. Now, the process of actually buying shares is actually quite straightforward, but the process of buying shares and making money from it, that's the complicated bit. But I will try and touch on a couple of things that might help you on that journey. Obviously, you need to do some research and speak to your various advisors, but I'll touch on a couple of things like ETFs or LICs along the way. The first thing is to make sure you have some money set aside in terms of an emergency fund. I know this is a bit pedestrian and a bit boring, but it's basically you don't want to be in a situation where you need to sell your shares or sell your investment holdings just to make sure you can cover some cash shortfall because of an emergency that had come up. So make sure you've got some cash set aside that you don't touch. That's for the emergency, and the rest of the money that you do want to invest in the share market, don't plan to touch it for another 5 to 7 years because that's generally the investment time frame for the share market. So the first official step is to pick your broker. So there's two types of brokers out there. There's CHESS-sponsored brokers and not CHESS-sponsored brokers. I have a personal preference towards the CHESS-sponsored brokers. That's just what I've always used. There's a few companies you can pick in terms of brokers, and there's quite a lot of websites out there that will help you do comparisons and narrow it down. I have a personal preference towards CommSec and CMC. These are the two I've used in the past. I did also used to use ANZ E-Trade, but that was actually being run by CMC, and I believe it's about to be closed down, and now CMC will also run ANZ's E-Trade platform as well. Now, step 2 is to actually set up an account with your broker. Now, I know this sounds very straightforward, but let me call out a couple of things. This is a serious financial transaction account, so make sure you actually use all your real details. It's not like setting up some kind of Netflix account on the side. You need to use your actual name, your actual billing addresses, your actual residential address. If you want to, you can give your tax file number. It's essentially like trying to set up a bank account. So you need to make sure you have all your key details aligned, your ID all checks out. I'll throw up on screen the example from CMC in terms of the accounts you can set up. For most people, I think an individual account is what you're going to be aiming for. If you are investing in some other way or some other format you want to use, speak to your financial advisor or your accountant who will help guide you, especially if you want to set up an account on behalf of a child or minor. They do have that as an option there. But I'd say most people are in the individual section. Just a quick note, if you are being charged money to set up a brokerage account, it's either a scam or not a very good deal. A lot of these companies, their business model is based on taking a cut on each transaction through brokerage, so they don't need to charge you money just to set up the account. It's just like setting up a normal financial account. You shouldn't have to pay money to do that. They'll get their money, don't you worry, down the track, but not at the first instant. Step 3 is assuming you've applied for your account with the brokerage company, they've signed you on, and they've given you your login details. Once you log in, the most important thing is to check your details, make sure they're all correct, and then you need to be able to answer 2 key questions. I think this is very important. The first is you need to know, how do you give your money to the brokerage company to actually buy the shares? So they'll usually have a section saying transfer funds, and they'll tell you this is the BSB and account number you need to send your money into for us to use to buy shares on your behalf. The second question you need to know is, how do you get your money out of the brokerage account after you've sold it? Or if you don't want to buy shares, how do you get your money back out again? This is really important. Now, you may skip this step, but I guarantee if you rush into this, you'll get caught out when you do need to get your money out. So make sure you can answer those 2 key questions before you proceed any further. Know how to get your money in and know how to get your money out, because it can vary. For example, with CommSec, you get assigned a Commonwealth Bank account and it's very easy to get money in and out of. With CMC, the brokerage platform that I'm currently using, it's easy to give them the money, but then you have to specifically set up the transfer account to get the money out. Speaking of getting your money out, I just want to take a moment to clarify something in case you haven't picked this up along the way. The share market is a market transaction. It's not like going to the store and buying something, which if you don't like it, you just want to return it and they'll give you a refund. The share market is a transaction between you and someone else, and the broker helps facilitate it. If you don't want the shares, you need to execute another sale to get rid of them. And this is where things like liquidity come in, the price come in, all of that. So just be conscious of that. There is no undo on the share market. If you buy shares in something, you need to then sell them to get your money out. I know this sounds a bit basic, but I just wanted to call it out just in case you thought you can put money into the share market and quickly get it out When you quickly get it out, you can do that, especially high liquidity things, but you may not get it out at the same value. So just be conscious of that. This is why I call out, if you are going to put money into the share market, just make sure it's money you don't plan to touch for a while. Step 4, we've done all the admin, you're ready to go. You know how to get your money in, you know how to get your money out. It's all legally set up. The next step is to actually understand what you want to buy, and you've done the research, or you're going through the research process. So there's generally 4 things you can buy through most share brokers. Shares in terms of actual companies or ownership in companies. ETFs is where you buy a holding which has holdings in lots of other things. I've done plenty of videos on that. You can buy bonds with some of the brokers. This is like a fixed interest bond. Or you can buy options, which is quite complicated. I haven't done it myself. I generally avoid that stuff. So most things people will buy are shares and ETFs. If you're not confident in doing the research for individual companies, or you just can't be bothered, an alternative, which people often consider, is buying either ETFs or listed investment companies. So these are 2 things that the Barefoot Investor has often talked about, and also Warren Buffett has said for the average individual who's trying to play in the share market, an index fund in the form of an ETF or index fund directly invested in is probably a good alternative to trying to pick individual company. Now, I won't spend too much time on it because I've done quite a few videos, and there's plenty of videos out there around ETFs, how to pick an ETF, which ETF to pick. But that could be a good starting point for you, because instead of having to pick individual companies and achieve greatness, you just achieve the market average. Step 5, you've decided what you want to purchase. Let's help you do the transaction. This is where you work a little bit backwards from how much money you want to put in. So if you want to put in $1,000 or $2,000, you have to work backwards in terms of how much you want to purchase in terms of units. Because what you need to tell the share broker is how many units of something you want to buy and the price per unit you want to spend on it. So for example, let's say you want to buy 10 units in a company where the share price is $100 a unit. So then you're going to be spending about $1,000, right? It's only $1,000 of value that you're buying, but you have to add on brokerage as well. This is the cut that the brokerage company will now take from you to execute the purchase on your behalf. So the value of what you're buying is $1,000, but the amount of stuff that they'll take from you is $1,000 plus brokerage. It might be $10, it might be $20. If you pay more than $20 brokerage, you're getting a little bit ripped off. So just be conscious of that. The other thing you need to do on the brokerage site is actually say how long you want your buy order to exist in the system. So this is where you can choose between it expiring at the end of that business day or some future date. Because what they're trying to understand is if they can't fulfill your order to the instructions you give them, the price and the amount of units you want, how long should they try and keep it out there and try and fulfill it? If it's just for one day, then that's fine. At the end of the day, they'll expire it and it'll be out of the system. But if you set some future date into the future, then they'll keep it going in the background until they have purchased everything you want to do. I always use expire on the day. I've never used expire in a few days because if I don't get that transaction going through on the day, I want it to be cancelled, forgotten about altogether, and I'll come back the next day and try and do the transaction again with a new order. Quick call out about the timing of the share market. The share market is only open between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. during business days. So if you want to put in a trade, what I usually do is I wait till the share market is opened, wait till about 11 a.m. lunchtime-ish, and then I'll put my trade in. I'll say I want to buy VAS ETFs, a certain amount of units at this price. I'll put in a buy order where the bid price is close to where it was recently, and then transaction will go through. And if it doesn't go through on the day, it gets cancelled, and that's fine. Step 6 is assuming you've now put in your order and you've actually successfully purchased the shares. You'll know this because you'll get inundated with emails. Most brokerage companies are pretty good with this. They'll send you an email when you've put your order in. They'll send you an email when you've actually successfully purchased the shares or when they've purchased the shares on your behalf. And they'll also generally send you a confirmation email saying, it's all done, we've finished, we've bought you $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth of shares. Make sure the money is ready to go in terms of your bank account. Now, different brokerage companies are a bit different. With most brokerage companies, they won't let you do the transaction unless you already have money sitting in their accounts for it. So you're fine there. You don't need to worry too much about putting the money in. In my experience of using ComSec, they used to let you do a transaction even if you didn't have the money there on the day. They just wanted the money to be there within a couple of days, within the standard transaction period. So just be careful if you are going to use ComSec to make sure you have money ready to go if you are successful with the purchase. Otherwise, you might be in a situation where I think you get fined and then you eventually get banned from ComSec. So avoid that at all costs if you can. The other thing within step 6 is to set up your account with the share registry. This is the group that I talked to you about that is separate from your brokerage company. Your brokerage company just helps you buy the shares. Once you own the shares, then your relationship in terms of dealing with the company is really via the share registry. So this is where you set up your account with the share registry. You tell them your details in terms of how to contact you, the email, your postal address. The other thing is this is also where you set up your dividend bank transfer account. So if you're going to get paid dividends, the company needs to know where to send the money. And that's where the share registry comes in. Sometimes the share brokerage account will actually set up your share registry account, but not always. So it's just worth logging into the share registry account to make sure all your details are set up. If you don't set up your details with the share registry, it's not the end of the world and you will get a reminder from the company. Usually when you do buy shares in a company for the first time, they'll say, hey, welcome to being in ownership in this company. Here are some key next steps. And in there will be a thing in there about setting up your share registry details so that they can communicate to you more around AGMs, voting, and dividends. Step 7, congratulations, you're now either an owner in a large company in Australia or in an ETF that has holdings all over Australia or all over the world. I would call the next step as the stressing and monitoring season of your life. Because it's natural, now that you've got a holding, you're going to see the value go up and down and you're going to be stressing out a little bit. I would just remind you that shares, and especially ETFs, are designed to be held for a long period of time. Especially if you look at Vanguard's actual documentation, they'll say the investment time frame is 7+ years. So the purchase is a great first step. Just because you're watching it, it won't go any faster up or it won't not go down at all. The share market gets driven by a lot of various factors that are very hard for us to control and predict. Quick call out in terms of fees. Most brokerage companies will not have an inactivity fee. So once you've purchased your shares, you don't really have to worry about paying maintenance or anything in that sense around individual companies you own or the share brokerage platform. The fee that you do need to be conscious of, but don't have to do anything about, is the fees associated with the ETF holding. They will charge a fee, but they'll manage that all directly with themselves, and they'll send you a notification every once in a while saying, hey, we've just charged this fee. This is how much it is. We've taken it out of the holding. So you don't have to get involved there, but it will happen in the background. So hopefully you're now a lot more confident in the purchasing journey of shares. And like I said before, the actual process of purchasing shares is very easy. The tricky bit is where you actually have to make more money over time. But we're all in the same boat. That's where we have to do our research, have to speak to your various advisors, your financial advisor, your tax accountant around some of the tax implications. It's just the start of a long-term journey, hopefully. So I would encourage you to consider subscribing as well, because I do a few videos on these topics over time and maybe you'll pick up a few things. See you in the next video. Bye for now.